of our democracy, and it is a historic occasion for us and for our city. We are proud to support the Commission on Presidential Debates as their health security advisor.
Mish will be here any moment, everybody. Once again, shout out to all of our great Patreon family. If you are tuning into the show live, you can watch the debate and watch our live reactions on video by going to the YouTube link that is only public for our Patreon family. If you just want to listen instead, you're welcome to go on the Discord Patreon channel, and I will be watching both chats. Mish will be joining us momentarily. And for those on YouTube right now, if you enjoyed last night's Breakfast Soup show, you will understand. Mish doesn't know yet. You will understand.
Thank you, Tom.
Why I have this
Case Western
tonight.
Reserve is honored to co-host this presidential debate with our partners at Cleveland Clinic, and delighted to show you this spectacular space we created together. Research has long shown that team-based healthcare leads
let me
to
know
better
if you
outcomes
hear
for
me
patients.
loud and clear. Let me
Yet
know if
nearly
you
every
hear
academic
the
institution continues to prepare students
background
in separate
debate,
buildings.
and I am purposely lowering it right now. Now, I started the video 5-6 minutes early just to do a couple of quick checks. Obviously, this is not completely polished, but I just want to make sure that everybody could hear
We
everything.
knew there had to be a better way, and together
You would not believe how much work Mish and I
with a
spent
stage and
today
seats.
trying to get this
atrium
done.
gives hundreds of students
And,
a huge open
you know what it
space
is?
to study,
YouTube
talk,
TV,
and simply be together.
Sling.
The entire building
You
provides
go on the
multiple
websites for all the
spaces
news
for them to come
sites,
together,
and you watch
supported by
the
an
live
academic
stream.
model that
It-
emphasizes opportunities
It's
to
purposely
learn with
blocked,
and from
so
one
video
another.
software
Add
doesn't
state-of-the-art technology,
copyright it.
and we know
The only
our graduates will
workaround
be
is to
uniquely
grab a
prepared to
stream
excel
on
in
YouTube,
team-based
not
care
YouTube TV, but
and
just regular
ultimately to
YouTube.
lead it.
And then I had
Along
to
the way,
create a
Cleveland
new
Clinic
little
and Case
video
Western
box.
Reserve also
And I
learned
put that
from
right
one
in the
another.
center. So that's
Among
what you're
the
seeing
most
right
valuable
now.
lessons
I actually
was that
cropped
through
it pretty nice
collaboration,
because
we
if I
achieved far
start,
more than
you know,
either of us could
uncropping
achieve
it,
alone.
you'll start
Thank you, Tom,
getting,
for being
you'll
such a
see what I'm
wonderful
talking about.
colleague
You
and
see,
friend.
this
Thank
is
you to the
actually a
Commission
YouTube right
for
now.
giving both
So
of our
yeah, so
organizations
we
the
worked on
opportunity
this
to
for a
be part of
while,
this historic
and
event.
I think
It
we
is a
got
true
it
privilege
pretty
to
damn
contribute
good,
to our
nice,
nation's
no
democratic
buffering,
process.
no
And thank you all
delays,
for watching.
and I could also lower the volume a little bit so the background doesn't overtalk us. Look, I am new to watch-alongs. We tried doing one a couple of weeks ago, Kev and I, and it was just a mess because everybody tuning in live had a different feed. So the second time around, it was a little bit better, but now everybody gets to enjoy it exactly the same time as us. That's why I suggest, look, nothing against Discord. That's why I suggest if you really want to get the ultimate experience of this live, check out our YouTube link, because you will see the video, you will hear the video, you will see and hear us. Oh, and by the way, you like my shirt? Trump, look, more jobs, no jobs, blow jobs. Yeah, come on, that's an awesome shirt. You got to admit. Once again, look. Oh, we got to do it with the hat. Here, the hat, my hat, a hat named Hat. More jobs. No jobs. I gotta go on my tippy toes. Blowjobs. There you go. All right. Yeah. Come on, you have to admit that was kind of funny. How come I don't hear nothing? What did I do? Did I fuck up some audio over here? I don't hear Chris Wallace. Oh no, don't tell me I screwed up something here. Shit. What did I do? Let's see what I did over here. I know it's something simple, so. You know what? Let's reload this. What the hell did I do? How come I can't hear nothing? Somebody said refresh. All right. You know what? Let me. By the way, where the hell is Mish? Let's see. Shit. Why? How come I can't hear no audio all of a sudden? What the hell did I do? Couldn't have screwed this up. Oh boy. Well, it didn't start yet, so it's all good. Let's see. Oh, it's just the stream. It's not even us. They muted it on their end. Why did Fox mute it? Dumb bastards. That's like a repeat of a couple of weeks ago when I thought I screwed up the subscriptions during a Castle Chronicles, and it ends up that it had nothing to do with me. Look at that. Fucking Fox Business muted the audio, douchebags. You gonna force me to watch CNN instead? Yeah, let's do regular Fox News. Okay, this is better. Wow, what a horrible reaction to his wife, Melania. All right. I think we're starting to get situated here. I don't know where Mish is. Got myself, not a beer, but ginger ale Zevia. I don't like this huge silence. Huge. Come on, hear nothing. These matarazzas. Yeah, Robert Lowry, I don't know where you have been, but basically my co-host has been talking, with all due respect, been saying a lot of things behind my back to a lot of people, and I've been silent about it because I didn't want to out anybody. One person finally told me, go ahead, you could tell everybody. So I can't do a show with someone that is basically, you know, for the last two years, smiling to my face and saying stuff behind my back. I mean, I'm not no innocent person either, but you know, we got this all cleared up 2 weeks ago. We're on a little hiatus. Tuesdays is breakfast soup. Once in a while, on a special occasion and the right news and discussion, Kev Castle will be a guest on the show as well, but that's been pretty much cleared up for a while now. So, you know, Packers winning the Super Bowl, very possible. I don't know, man. I don't like this uber silence. There's Mish. There's Mish. Let me see. I don't like this uber silence. Let me just click to another channel and make sure that there's actually audio.
He will likely go on attack, probably, according to aides.
Yeah. So this is Fox News with the silence. Maybe we'll put C-SPAN instead. Let's see.
If you're over 25 and driving a car, you have to use Surrent. With Surrent, you can get auto insurance as low as $19 a month.
Aaliyah.
If you're over 25, own a car with a clean driving record, you can drop your auto insurance to as low as $19 a month in less than 60 seconds.
Oh, I don't hear you.
Don't wait any longer. It's super easy.
Hey, look,
click this button
is just
or go
for
to
you.
Surrent.com.
2 things.
Enter your zip
First,
codes
shirt,
and basic
all right?
information,
Look at
and
the
check
shirt.
the cheapest rates in 60
More jobs.
seconds. It's as simple as that.
No
Go to
jobs.
Surrent.com and check out how
More
much you can save
jobs.
on auto insurance in 60 seconds.
And
I like that. The audio is really loud.
well, I know the audio's loud. I'll adjust it. Yeah, I could just yeah. I just adjusted it all the way down.
Out here, I
Hold on.
Would you believe?
I'm going to go back to Fox News. It's purposely silent right now, but I did a whole bunch of audio and video checks with YouTube and Discord. They're saying you have a little bit of an echo, but I think I actually know what that is, so I might have just... I don't hear you at all now. Yeah, I
All
don't
right.
hear
Well, the reason.
Say something now?
All right. Is that better?
No, you're still echoing.
Yeah, I'm in the Discord.
Yeah, you know what you gotta do? You gotta, you just mute your, you could mute my side of it because you could hear me through the vMix. No, see, now I don't hear you at all. Or you might have to just mute your side through, you know what you do? Yeah, just mute your side entirely.
Discord. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but if you mute your side on Discord, they could still hear you because you're coming out of my computer.
Good evening.
Yeah, you probably could have to disconnect from Discord.
And the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President
Yeah, I would just
Joe
disconnect
Biden.
from Discord.
This debate
You could
is
still chat
sponsored
with
by
everybody.
The Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question.
I hope there's
then
no
open
trolls in the
discussion for
audience,
rest
man.
of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the two candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate.
They could give each other
The
the middle
audience
finger,
here in
though.
the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers,
I'm gonna take my
no
fucking
boos
kick.
or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
Oh, that's smart to introduce them both together, so one doesn't get
So nobody
booed.
has an intro.
Yeah.
They can't do the Randy Orton.
How you doing, man? I'm ready.
All right, 3 hours, folks.
No, 90
Gentlemen,
minutes.
A lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Wow, they didn't bring up the tax returns right
I'll
away.
tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way.
Who is this
good in
guy?
every
What is
way.
Trump?
In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time. Even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know.
Because he's going to
So
win.
I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election. So
They didn't have the
were
Senate.
stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won
I
the
think
election, and
Biden
we
is
have the
going
right
to
do
answer
it.
questions better
President Trump, thank
when
you.
he is the second
Same
person
question to you,
speaking.
Vice President Biden.
So, because
You
he could
have-
think about what Trump is saying.
First of all, thank you for doing this, and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is.
They
And
did.
that
They
say
elected Trump.
occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now.
He already
because we're in the
gaffed
middle
because
of
he
an
said that
election
they
already.
voted for a
The
senator.
election has already started.
He meant the whole
Tens of
Senate.
thousands of
And I'm
people
not
have already
nitpicking.
voted.
I'm just.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome
But
of
why?
this election is. Because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
He's got to
which,
look down
will
just to
strip
see the words
20 million
Affordable Care Act.
from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court, and the justice, and I have nothing. I'm not opposed to the justice. She seems like a very fine person, but she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy.
Oh, come on.
They're able to charge a woman more for the
Tax.
same exact procedure a man did.
Women pay more than
That
that.
ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election.
Oh, so
If
it's
he
okay
wins
to take
the
away
election,
pre-existing
if the
conditions
Senate is
after the
Democrat or
election.
Republican, then it can go forward. If not, we should wait until February.
There aren't 100 million
wait till
people with
February.
existing conditions. As far as the say is
Yeah,
concerned,
when the
people
election
already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
During
election.
that period of time,
It's the Constitution,
we
not
have an opening.
Ginsburg's.
I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years.
The
And the
election's
100
already
million
started.
people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly
knows
going
that.
to socialist.
Go
You're
ahead.
going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
Not what you've said,
But
and it's not what
that
your
is-
party has said.
that is simply
Your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party
That is
wants to
simple.
go socialist
My
medicine.
party is
and
me.
socialist
Right
healthcare.
now, I am
And
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of.
It's getting
What I
brutal.
approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had
Pre-existing conditions?
308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't
the
be
deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which was heavily
Mr. President,
You would have
Mr.
been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
Much later.
Mr. President,
You're talking about 2 million people.
You're not gonna be able
President,
to
as
shut
the
him up.
moderator, We are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go
You can
ahead.
feel the
Let me
tension.
finish. The point is that the
Yeah,
president
but he's not-
also is
right,
opposed
he's
to
very
Roe v. Wade.
right.
Yeah.
That's on the ballot as
Trump
well
is
in
just
the
as
court.
guilty as-
In the court.
as mishandling
And so
this
that's
whole
also
COVID
at stake
situation.
right
Trump
now.
has got to be careful,
the
too,
election
because
is
if he
all-
comes
You know
off
it's
as
on the
bullying
Why
Biden,
is it in the ballot?
Because,
You know.
because
Why
you're
is it
Which
on
is
the
what
ballot?
he's
It's not in the ballot.
it's
gonna
on the
do,
ballot
yeah.
in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
And you
just be
don't
quiet
know
for a
her
minute?
view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't
don't
know her
know.
view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So, on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking.
by the
to
way, could
overturn
everybody hear us
Obamacare, to end
talking
Obamacare.
when
You
we
have spent the last-
talk
Because
above
they
them?
want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare in these 4 years, come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll
I
give
got
you
rid
an
of
op-
the
and when I
individual
finish,
mandate.
I'm going to give you an
Excuse
opportunity.
me. I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive
Obama. That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the
I-
worst
I
part
didn't
of
ask,
Obamacare.
sir.
Chris,
You're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part
me.
of Obama.
Let me ask my
Well,
question.
I'll ask Joe.
The
Individual mandate was the most
Are you
unpopular
with me?
aspect of
Mr.
Obamacare.
President,
I
Shut
got
up.
rid of it.
I'd like you
and we
to,
will
Yeah.
protect people.
President,
He
I'm
should
the
not be
moderator of
arguing
this
with
debate,
Wallace.
And I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your
Go ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay.
Ooh.
I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something. That there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it.
That's because medicine wasn't
we're
created
cutting
yet at that
healthcare.
time.
All of the things that we've done,
He has not cut
insulin. I
healthcare.
give you an example. Insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people. The cost. I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water. You want to know the truth? So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing. Prescription drug prices. We're going to
Biden's
allow
also
our
got to be
governors now
careful
go
not
to
to
other
laugh
countries
too
to buy
much.
drugs because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let
but
me
this
ask
is
you about,
big. This
you'll
is
be happy,
big stuff.
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
well, if I can
sorry.
ask you the question, it will
Not what your
end.
party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option, number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie
Number-
Sanders, who's
I
far
did-
left, on the manifesto,
When
we
you-
call it.
when
And that
manifest-
gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you saying
I'm not
you
going to
didn't
listen
agree?
to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm here standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left
Well,
2
I
days
tell
early.
you-
You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do
Super
is hurt.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very
might
here's
be
the deal.
wrong.
I got very
Yeah,
lucky. I'm going to get
yeah.
very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agreed.
want to
Hey,
make
wait,
sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
Ooh.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has.
Can you let me
you
finish?
you
You'd
picked
be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy,
Go,
the
go,
wrong night at
go.
the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Now
let
you're
him-
disavowing it.
There is no manifesto. Number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. He agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan
Folks,
that's absolutely
folks,
agreed
do you have
to,
any
and under that
idea
plan,
what
you have
this clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
Do you
Medicare,
have any
President.
do?
socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I'll tell
President,
you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care. Because
Bernie?
because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two, there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
And replace it with something else.
Health care at a much lower price
But-
because
and by the way, he
Obamacare
doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a
fixed
plan.
it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't. Obamacare
gentlemen, you realize
is no
if you're
good,
both
Joe.
speaking at the
It's no
same
good,
time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed, they shouldn't even call it Obamacare.
Oh, man.
Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
and I
known for.
just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
people- that's
So
what his people said.
we do want to get rid of it.
It's
Chris,
an
we
open-
want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
give
it, sir,
something
but I have
that's
to. I
cheaper
have to
and
give you
better.
roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care. Of
course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right.
He's
I
against
have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9
Oh,
justices
this is
there.
gonna be good.
You call this a
He's
distraction
been
by the
dodging this
president.
question,
In fact, it wasn't
Biden.
brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now.
He didn't
Vote
answer
and
it.
Let your senators know how
Are you gonna
strongly
pack
you
the
feel.
court?
Vote
You're
now.
gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't
you're
wanna
a
answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
won't you answer that
because
question?
the
You
question
want a lot
is
of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justices,
the
radical
question.
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
Listen, who is on your list?
Will you
Joe?
shut up,
This
man?
is
Who's on your
so
list?
Right, gentlemen, I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the court.
We have
We're not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second
Wow.
segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They sure do.
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject. So let's try to be serious.
He didn't
about
answer
it.
the question,
We have had
though.
more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have
He just
died.
said 70 million cases
After
of
we produce
coronavirus in the United
a
States?
vaccine,
70
experts
million?
say that it could be months,
That can't
or even
be.
years, before we come
I
back
think it's
to
like
anything.
no. I think it's like
approaching
7 million,
normal.
not 70.
My question for both of you is, based on what you have said,
I might have to fact check
and
that like
done
right
so
now.
far, and what you have
I
said
would
you
twice.
would do starting in 2021.
Let me see if I can fact check
Why
that.
should the American people trust you more than
Check that right now.
your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case,
Total cases to
question
date
goes
in
to
the
you
United
first, sir.
States,
2 minutes
7.2
uninterrupted.
million, not 70 million. Yeah.
200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%,
I was
4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was.
Yeah, there's 7 million cases.
What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing.
Yeah, because at the time we didn't know what was going to happen.
Being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing.
I'm nowhere near the Trump supporter I used to be, but this doesn't make sense.
Back in March, exactly what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you...
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country.
Wait a minute. It says 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor.
Why is he laughing?
Go take a look.
That's one thing that's not good.
Phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made the ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no economic recession.
Sir, you made a
there was no recession.
You made a point. Let him answer.
And there was no one. We didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got
Here comes the talking point.
And had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far more people. Far more people.
And,
you would have been
and by the way,
months late.
his own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all. Nor do you.
He's not the one making the vaccine, you moron. It's going to be the same scientist, no matter who's president.
By the way,
gentlemen, let me move on to questions about the future, because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first.
I mean, look, I know a lot of people hate Trump, but he's not the one in the laboratory. It's going to be the same medics, and scientists in the same laboratory, no matter who's president.
Disease control, Dr. Redfield said it would be summer before the vaccine becomes generally available.
The problem is
and mistaken
problem
your
is
two
that
words.
federal
But
infrastructure
Dr.
failed us.
Flowey, the head of your operation,
Absolutely, you're right.
And he was
has said
completely
exactly
right
the
there.
same thing.
Yeah.
Are they both
You're
wrong?
right.
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political
It is
thing.
political.
I've spoken
It
to
is political, yeah.
Pfizer, I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call
So
them
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what I
that the
call them.
head of your operation, Warp Speed, Dr. Slawi,
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
He said
Dr.
it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also
I'm
be
talking
after
about when it's
that.
generally available, not when
Well,
it will
we're
be.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This
delivering
is the
the
same
vaccine.
man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the
That
same
was
man.
said sarcastically.
That was
You know that. That was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year, but the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to
What?
get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will.
It's going to be
Pray God we
shipped
will.
out
Vice
within
President,
a
I wanna
week.
pick up, though,
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but
Oh,
they can't
man.
trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying you
Everybody
can't, or
knows.
Senator
And-
Harris is saying
no,
you can't trust the scientists.
No, you can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust
She said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him.
What hospital?
That's not. They're the people. And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and Fauci,
scientists that are in charge.
By the way,
they will have
and
the vaccine very
does-
soon.
Let him finish.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So-
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing.
let's have this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
And it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to talking.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next
Damn,
president.
man.
I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I'd know what the plan is.
What plan?
You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to
Sanitation?
provide
Tell that
them
to Nancy
plastic-
Pelosi.
Yeah.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy
No,
Pelosi.
And
Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't
government
even
should
meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with him in the Senate. And he sits on his golf course. And I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants to shut down this country, and I want to keep it open. And we
You
did
get-
a great
he just
thing by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November 3rd.
I want to move on to another
because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to another
I've got to
subject.
respond.
But those states are not doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
Wants
President
to shut down
Trump,
the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay.
masks?
You have to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to, but I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rally.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say
Vice
this.
President Biden, go ahead, sir.
The way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And if
They've
it
also
doesn't,
said the opposite. They've also
And
said
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
No
also said- Well,
serious.
all right, I
Look
wanna
at Dr.
ask you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did not
I
say
want to
the
ask you, we
opposite.
got a
said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks are good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject because your different
think
approaches
Biden's
has
laughing
even
a little
affected
bit
the
too
way
much.
that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
Outside.
Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with.
Well, it's true. Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You go first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
and
not worried
hangars,
about
and we
the
have
disease
a lot of
issue,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours' notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
Yes, sir.
one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no
Not
negative
to
effect.
Joe. No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect, and we've had 35,000, 40,000
All right. Do you
people
want
at these
to
rallies.
just
Yes.
quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encouraging not to.
irresponsible
All right.
handling the
He's a fool.
social
If you
distancing.
could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
gentlemen? Can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The
I
economy
understand.
is, I think, it's fair to say, recovering
Look,
faster than expected.
Trump is definitely
from
a
the
dick.
shutdown.
Trump is an
in the
asshole.
second quarter. The unemployment rate fell to 8.4%
I just,
last
I don't
month.
know, man.
The Federal Reserve says that
See, what I've always said
growth,
about
which is
Trump,
going to be there,
even
is
if
not
you
going
don't
to be
like
nearly
him,
as big as they
he's
had
got
expected.
the biggest
President
ego
Trump, you say
of
we are in a
anybody I've ever
V-shaped
come across in my
recovery.
lifetime. And
Vice President Biden, you say it's more
failure
of a
is something
What
that
difference
he
does that
doesn't
mean
accept.
to the
You know what I
American
mean?
people
Like
in terms of
it's
the economy? President Trump
somebody
Yeah,
says
but
something
this is-
negative on social media, he'll lash right back. And a reporter says something negative, he'll go right back. And sometimes he's got to just shut up and just let it go. This guy does not handle failure well. So I'd rather someone who insists of trying to, have everything as perfect as possible than, you understand what I'm saying? So I don't know. This is just all. I haven't put it this way. Have you heard anything so far of what Biden would do if he was president? It's more, he's irresponsible, he's terrible, he's a liar, he mismanaged.
He will destroy this country.
What has he shown? That's my concern. I said this to somebody today. If I went for a job application right now, I want to work for a corporation. I show up with a beautiful suit. I show up groomed, everything looking great. And there's somebody waiting in the waiting room who's going to be interviewed as well. And I sit down with the chairman of the corporation, and the chairman looks at my resume and says, why should we hire you? Tell me why you would be an asset for our corporation. And I turn around and all I do is rip the guy in the waiting room and not tell you what's good about me. You think I'm going to get the job? I have to sell myself. And that's something you remember when I used to make fun of all the podcasters. I learned back in 2008. I want people to tune into me because I'm good, not because the others are bad.
Our country is coming back incredibly well.
If you're a candidate, you more
Yeah.
But as president,
Yeah.
minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax
$300 billion.
proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America.
Here's the talking point.
What are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's just yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States.
What is he talking about?
And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone.
So shutting the economy down keeps the businesses open? That doesn't make sense.
The needs of the American people, so we can open safely.
All right, your time is up, sir. We are going to get to.
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful, but they want their schools open. I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
all right,
people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know how I found out? When he took
gentlemen,
a phony
we're going to
ad.
get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, As you well know,
Wow.
there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected
Here's the
president,
taxes.
in 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid
returns.
$38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million
Show us your tax
1 year.
returns.
I went. You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under-leveraged because the assets are extremely good, and I built
Sir,
a great
I'm asking you a specific question, which
But
is...
let me tell you-
I understand all of that.
Release your
I
tax
understand all
return.
of that.
But let me-
No, Mr. President.
guy is
I'm
under
asking you a
audit, though.
question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750.
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it.
I-
And you'll get to
When?
see it. But let me just
Inshallah?
tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build
Profit
the
and
building
loss.
and we get tax credits, like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get
Okay.
a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired
no,
right after that happened. But
Vice
that's
President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look,
Here's the
tax
talking point.
code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes on the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax
Okay.
cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact,
here's the talking
need
point.
help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you
Why
weren't
didn't
president.
you do it over
Because
the
you
last
weren't
25
president
years? No,
screwing
no,
things
no.
up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
the way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months.
Than you've
I've
done in
more than
47
you've done
years.
in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing,
Okay,
including
gentlemen.
fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of
we're
your
talking,
vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be
Yes,
elected
ma'am.
president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what as the analysis done by Wall Street firms points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we have
What does that have to
we're
do
gonna
with
make
taxes?
The federal government spends $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company
But
in
respectfully,
America.
sir, I'm talking about taxes,
Yeah.
not spending.
Well, by the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it
Billions
before
of
when
dollars.
you were vice president
Because,
with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
Well,
your
he wasn't
tax
president when
proposal.
Obama was
You
the
know what happened?
president.
You got it done.
Our economy boomed
And,
like it's never boomed
The economy
Well,
is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower
What's that audio?
taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for American people.
Let me.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery since economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929.
I like when he does that.
When
with his hand, and he goes like shut up. He does this.
If you got in,
When Joe interrupts him, you'll see him do this.
Ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
booming.
Blew it. It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when fact there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
What is he talking about?
Excuse me, Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you're on number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would take a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing. Part of my standard fare.
I'm the guy that brought back the automobile industry.
All right, let him.
We brought back. I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having.
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit.
Speaking
with
of
China
stealing,
now than we did
bring up
before.
his son.
We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch. Down 18%. China ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
None of that is true.
Let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really? He didn't get $3.5 million?
Mr. President,
totally,
Mr. President, please.
Totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
he got $3.5 million.
It is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr. President, it's an open discussion, please.
Now,
it's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr. President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President, let him answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who?
And
the media?
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our allies, by the World Bank, by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even the people who testified under oath.
So let me ask you this, Joe.
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to you.
He
got $3.5 million from Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd
honorably.
like to know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the people who testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do a good job. With you,
go ahead. Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Hey, let me just say, Joe.
No. I'm Mr. President.
$3.5 million, Joe.
That is simply.
Why did he deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics.
Here's the talking
I
point.
don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's already...
No, let him go.
My family
already
lost
wrote.
a fortune by coming down and helping us with government.
sir.
And that's such a...
they're right
that's
here.
Mr.
that's
President.
such a
Every
great...
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
about
President.
my
coming and
family or his
helping us
family.
with
It's
government.
about your family,
They
the
didn't
American
collect
people.
$3.5 million
He
for
doesn't...
nothing.
That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people.
Here's the talking
It's about
point.
you. That's what we're talking about
you
here.
should
All right,
Not
that's the end of the
Shouldn't have
segment.
taken the money.
We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice
it's a very-
President,
but Chris,
no,
can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No,
He
I
stood up.
No,
he stood up,
the answer to
and
the
he
question is no.
threatened Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you don't
That
get rid of
is
the trust.
You know what? You're
absolutely not
stop.
true.
Tape
You're
doing it.
You're going to
Not
have
true.
Gentlemen.
Is-
I hate to raise
Chris,
my voice, but
he's
I
on
see it seems
tape.
to be. Why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the
Got a
deal.
good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions.
Wow.
I'm appealing to you, sir, to
This is
do
a mess.
And him too.
well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
Well, that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less
there's
than,
plenty.
no, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years?
This is gonna be wild.
Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's going to be sad.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people looked like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever
Finish
said
the
anything
statement.
like that.
Finish the statement.
It is who's
Now,
2 minutes, sir.
second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a
There
Bible.
was the
And then
place
what
went on
happened
fire
after
the
that?
day before.
The bishop
What
of
is this
that
guy
very
talking
church
about?
said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has
but
used
Biden
everything
hasn't
as
said
a
what he
dog
would do.
whistle to try to generate
I don't hear you.
racist hatred.
No
racist
audio on your
division.
end.
This is a man who, in
Yeah, I
fact,
can't hear you.
talk about helping African Americans.
Your audio's not going through.
In 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is the savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about.
He hasn't
You have
said
to
what he
look
would
at
do.
What he did, and what he did.
I'm not
has
trying
been
to stick up for
disastrous
Trump,
for the African American
but this
community.
is what people need from
President
Biden.
Trump,
They want to
you
hear
have 2
what he
minutes.
wants
Why
to, not
should
that this guy
Americans
sucks.
trust you over your opponent to deal with race.
You did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that. because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at
I got to be honest with you.
Seattle,
up until this point, the debate, this is probably the strongest thing that he said all night.
Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left, and they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case,
that was probably the most powerful moment he had the whole debate so far.
Homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us.
Here's the talking point.
But there are some bad apples, and when they occur,
he's going to look at the screen.
They have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful
Why did he
protest
wait
is.
6
Violence
months
is
to
never
say that?
appropriate.
All right,
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of the town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place, and you say peaceful protest?
President Trump,
No, it's
I'm not
not,
asking.
but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies
It seems
to end
like it's going to get a little
racial
bit calmer now.
sensitivity training
It feels
that
like it.
addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody else. And he would know.
What is radical about racial sensitivity training, sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this than he does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know. They don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy.
See, you don't build self-esteem by taking away someone else's self-esteem or making, you know, that
look down on people who don't have money.
You can't be. I can't be a racist because of the way that I was treated or the way. Everybody should treat each other the same across the board.
There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but
Lord.
the reason is that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you in
crime.
favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow it.
Are you in favor of law and order? Go
Yes,
ahead,
I'm
say
in
it.
favor.
You asked a
Everybody's in favor
question,
of
let him finish.
Law and order.
Law
Let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more
he
than
had-
ours.
All right, we're
He
down.
is president of the
President, you're going
United States of
to.
America.
Mr. President,
every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because
And the
we're now going to
places
talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's
and
exactly
so-
my question.
Democratic-
There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer,
In
particularly,
Democratic
and you
cities.
often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is
cities.
crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've never seen.
He would know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was
better.
raised.
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large
whistles.
integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and/or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing.
Oh,
First of all,
Melanie,
what does
this is going to be
reimagining
interesting
policing
for
mean,
people
and
out there
do
that
you
don't follow
support-
politics all this much.
Let me, if I might finish the question.
Watch
What does
this.
reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter
Organization.
call for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm
What?
not totally
What does that
opposed
mean?
to defunding the police offices. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we
It's
had
called
before,
hostage
where the officers get
negotiators
to
and
know the people
they do
in
that
the
already.
communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what
in
they're
prevent-
talking about,
That's-
Chris. That's
well,
not what
that-
they're talking
that's
He's talking
exactly-
about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law
Would you-
support.
look,
He has no law enforcement
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
look,
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go
Look,
ahead.
look.
Think. We have time.
we don't have time to do
No,
anything.
think
All right.
about it.
See,
Name
it's
one
not
law
funny,
enforcement
but
group that came out and
I think,
supported
gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take back the
There aren't.
moderator's
I don't
role,
think there
and
are any.
I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100.
I'll be honest with you, I don't like either candidate all that much.
Which I think you would agree. You talk
Seriously,
about peaceful protests.
it's who's going to make the less damage. You know, I'm worried more than anything. I'm worried about Kamala Harris
who commit crimes
because of how radical
be held
she is.
Accountable.
You know,
the question I have,
I'm
is,
worried
as the
about her
Democratic
more than
nominee, and
anything
earlier
else.
tonight, you said that you are the Democratic Party right now. Have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months
I hope
of
Trump
violence
keeps quiet right
in
now.
Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am
Why wouldn't you do that anyway?
former vice president. I've made it clear. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never
prosecuted.
called for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You had never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to call
Because
bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Here,
Oh, really?
here's the thing.
I sent in the
wait, I
U.S.
asked him a
Marshals to
question.
get the killer
No,
of the young man in the middle of the street. They shot him, and for 3 days,
President Trump,
Portland
President
wouldn't do
Trump,
anything.
please
I had to send in
interrupt-
the U.S. Marshals.
President
They
Trump,
took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said it.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think so.
She said that. And so here's the
All right.
But here's the point.
Oh man,
The point is that
he just got
that's
caught
what
in a
he is,
major
keep
one.
trying to
Kellyanne
rile
Conway, I
up.
don't believe ever said
He doesn't
that.
want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly,
And-
every single solitary
Okay,
time.
and to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have
His statement?
repeatedly.
Wait,
you have
just one
repeated. No,
second.
you've been talking
You
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to
you know,
end it.
sir.
I would love to end it, and
You know,
we
if
would
you want to
very-
switch seats,
We would very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd
I'm
send
no,
in the
I'm-
National Guard. It would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay,
But they
good.
don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha?
I hope
and as
Biden
we've
doesn't
seen in
laugh.
Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
do that,
specifically
but
do it?
Well,
I
go
would
ahead,
say
sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
what are you-
If
what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists
Who
and
would
right
you like me to
supremacists.
condemn?
White
Proud Boys.
supremacists and right-wing
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left-wing.
FBI director
This
said
is a
the threat
left-wing
on
Go ahead,
problem.
white
Go ahead, sir.
supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it.
What
Not
is he,
malicious.
nuts?
That's what his
It's an idea.
FBI, his FBI
And
director
gentlemen,
said.
Well,
we're
then
gonna-
you know what?
No,
He's
no,
wrong.
we're done, sir. We're
Everybody-
moving on to the next.
everybody
We're
gives
moving.
you
Bat
advice
hits
in
you
your
over the head, that's
administration.
not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is
administration
bad.
tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas. that are-
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When
in
a
2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on
I have
his
a
record.
feeling there's not going to be any
But
more
Vice
debates
President
after
Biden,
this
you like to quote one of
between
your
the two.
dad's sayings,
You
which
think
is,
so?
don't compare me to the almighty.
I mean, it's great
compare me
ratings
to
and
the
great
alternative.
TV,
And in this case, sir,
but-
you are the alternative.
Yeah, I have
Looking
a feeling they're going to tell
at both of your
Biden
records,
you
I'm going to
can't
ask
debate
each of
this
you,
guy, that he's too
why should voters
wacko. Watch,
elect
I'm
you
telling
president
you. You're going to see
over your
tomorrow
opponent? In
people
this segment,
insisting that
President Trump will
Biden
go
not
first,
show
2
up for the
minutes.
remaining debates.
Because
I'll bet
there
you.
has
I'll
never
bet you a
been
dollar.
An
I'll
administration
bet you a
or
dollar.
president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe, and then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges, because President Obama and him left me 128.
Yeah, I agree, because Trump has no decorum.
When you leave office,
It is the New York
you just don't do that.
attitude,
They left
and I'm not saying it as a
128
compliment,
openings,
but that is.
And if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have
No,
2 minutes
Jason,
uninterrupted.
Obama definitely appointed judges, but when Obama left office, he left 128 spots for judges empty. That's what he's talking about.
We inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused the recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add
No,
back
I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Go ahead, back 30 seconds.
Yeah, yes, you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly.
Wow, this debate's only got 15 minutes
Billionaires
left.
have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. It can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers.
You never said that.
And just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot. And the people left behind
He must have rehearsed that like 1,000 times for this moment to do that.
Are you talking about
I'm talking about my son, Beau Biden. You're talking about...
I don't know Beau. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He wasn't dishonorably.
Cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you became vice president, he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
that is simply
and various
not
other places.
True.
He made a fortune.
My son.
And he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he given tens of millions of dollars?
But he wasn't given tens of millions of dollars. That is totally discredited.
We've already been
totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a judgment call here.
Gets $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow.
Let's talk about that. True. Gentlemen, that report is totally discredited. Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
You know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very exciting.
Do you believe
for a lot of people.
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contribute to the global warming of this
I think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
that's burning down because of a lack of management.
But, sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants?
They have the lowest carbon emissions right now.
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars?
Well, not really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by $3,500.
In the case of California, they've simply ignored
No, but you would take a lot of cars
rollback
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And, and I'm okay with electric cars, too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy
Here
that
comes the talking point.
is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not 15 bucks an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that in fact is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests?
I bet you Biden agrees.
On his line.
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is the guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings
and
rebuild the building.
No,
it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out,
and
where
cows
they
can't
want to take
fart.
out the cows too.
That's
not true either, right?
This
is a $100 trillion.
Look,
that's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're
not
going.
The case.
All right, let me
destroy our
because I
country.
actually wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes,
where's this money come from?
The president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs.
Where's the money going to come from?
Let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives.
Right, big baller. Where's the money come from?
Which he wants to get rid of.
Know where it comes
it's
from?
It's going to make the economy.
Everything goes up in
Look how much
price.
we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's
at all.
he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up.
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good
Here's the
jobs
talking point.
by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now. Billions of dollars.
Joe, turn ahead.
On floods, hurricanes,
Turn your head.
rising seas.
All right.
We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with
Here
these
you go.
storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion,
that is
not
not
$20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
the Green
New you want to rebuild every
is
building.
Not my plan.
You want to rebuild every.
If he knew anything about, if he knew anything
he made a
about,
statement about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
what
not
he
true.
did is he said
That's not true.
he called
Mr.
the military
Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
He said
Mr.
stupid
Please,
bastards. He
not
said
sir,
it.
stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that
play
to the
it.
military.
Play it.
Go ahead,
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President. Answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your
the
environmental
Green New
changes
Deal,
will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
But do you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
You support that?
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
We just said it was going to pay for itself.
I support the
the radical left.
I support
you
the
don't.
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment, election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election, and what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com. Decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not, when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change, or are you going to get 4 more years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition, because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won, and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense, and President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well, because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months, because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election. In theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that,
Sir,
all run by
2 minutes
Democrats.
is 2 minutes.
All run by
You're-
Democrats. It's
President
a fraud.
Trump,
It's a rigged election.
you're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter, of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what
They
are you
throw
going to
them
do
out
about it?
left
If there
and
are
right.
millions of ballots going out
What
right
you
now,
do
what
is
are
you
gonna
go
do?
and vote. You do a solicited ballot,
No,
and
no,
that's
I'm not-
okay,
I know
or
your
you go and
complaint.
vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people
You go
have
and vote. You go and
No,
vote
but what
like
I'm
they
saying is, what are
like
you
they
gonna do
used
about
to
the
in
fact
the
that
old.
millions of people?
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country.
There is no-
This is not.
there is no
This is
evidence
not
of
going to
that.
end well.
There is
Okay.
no
This
evidence
is
of that.
not going
Vice
to
President
end well.
Biden-
Five
You
states
know,
had
go ahead,
mail-in
sir.
ballots
They're
in the
everywhere
last
now.
decade or more.
One
Five,
regular
including
place.
2 Republican
Nowhere.
states. And
they're
you
in
don't have
every
to solicit
single-
the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What we're saying is,
Precinct.
they're saying is
Yeah.
that it has to
Every
be
single alder.
postmarked by the time,
Office.
by election day.
Whole place.
If it doesn't get in until the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should
It's
be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because he
You're
knows what the
wrong.
outcome
You're
is.
wrong.
No, I
love
want to
votes.
continue with you on
I
this,
love
Vice
counting the
President
votes.
Biden.
Chris,
because
he's so wrong when he makes
in
a
fact,
statement
no,
like that.
excuse me, Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they
can
missed
be fraud.
the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not
What?
dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for.
How do you
say it's
follow
you.
up
That
with
is
that?
totally
There's
legit.
300 people
All
in
right.
this country.
Finally,
No, no, no.
when you
I
have
have a final-
80 million ballots
Gentlemen, I have a final
sent in
question.
and swamping the system,
you
know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already
All
there's
right,
been
so now-
fraud.
Mail
deception.
service delivers
Wait a minute, gentlemen. And the
185
final
million
question
pieces of mail a
is:
day.
in
million
8
ballots.
states, we can keep talking.
It's
in
a-
8
it's a
states,
disgrace.
election workers are prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and
Yes.
flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks.
Could be months.
Until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair
You're urging
election,
them what?
I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what,
does that
from
mean,
a common
not go along?
sense,
Does that mean
I'll
you're going
tell
to
you
tell
what
your
it means.
people to take to the
It means you
street?
have a fraudulent election. You're
And what are
sending
you
out
gonna do?
80
And
million
what would you
ballots.
do about that?
They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two,
Okay.
they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name
All right.
military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
You think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War.
It's not that the military are getting mail-in. It's what's happening after they
Why is it for
fill it
them
out.
somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established.
Take
Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
I
and then
asked
how-
you had an opportunity
Look
to
at
respond.
Carolyn Monroe.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome, and I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to
if
see
in
an
fact,
honest
Okay,
ballot count.
gentlemen,
We-
you say that's the end of
Chris,
it? This is the
I
end
wanna
of this
see an
debate?
honest ballot count.
We're
And I
going to
think
leave
he
it
does
there.
too.
To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this
I have
event.
a
The next
feeling
debate,
that
sponsored
they
by
may
the Commission
actually
for
bump
Presidential Debates,
elbows right now,
will be
believe it
1
or
week
not,
from
even though they
tomorrow,
didn't shake
October
hands.
7th at the University
I wonder
of
if
Utah
that happens.
in Salt Lake City. The 2
I
vice
think-
presidential nominees, Vice
I wanna
President
see
Mike
if that
Pence
happens.
and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you and good night. Thank you.
I want to see if they approach each other.
Just turn it off. It's over, Johnny.
Krauser. I think Trump is looking over to see if they get. Look, he keeps looking over. I think he's asking his wife if he should go over there. I think Biden's looking over too. I think they should. I think they should.
I don't think they should.
Oh, maybe not.
I don't think they should at all.
Greatest president of all time. All right, so we could close that box. What a mess. I tell you, I'm not going to lie to you, man. I never did watch-alongs before. Tried to do one for NXT with Kev, and it was a mess because none of us realized that we would all be watching different feeds, time delays. Some people posting winners of matches. We were 30 seconds behind. We did it again, and I put the video box in Discord, and it was much, much better. But the problem was the match between Adam Cole and Finn Balor aired in the first hour. We thought that we were going to cover that match in the second hour for the watch along. So this truly today, and look, some of you out there already know this. Mish and I this afternoon spent about 2 hours trying to get everything configured so we can all watch the debate together and react to it trying to have the right audio levels and everything. So this was really the first time that we've done it. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how everybody on Patreon feels, how this came across today, but the debate was an absolute disaster. Look, again, I obviously support our president, but I honestly think if Biden would have chose like not like Condoleezza Rice or someone else as his VP pick, I would seriously consider voting for Biden, because I'm more concerned of the vice president. I don't think Biden will last 4 years. I don't even know if Trump would last 4 years. So you have to look at the runner-up, and it's Kamala Harris and Mike Pence. And to me, Mike Pence is probably the softest of the four. And this was a disaster. I honestly am going to make the prediction that tomorrow you're going to have the Democratic Party insist that Biden not show up for the remaining debates. I think Trump is going to show up and Biden is not. And this pretty much is what we're going to be left with. And I tell you, you look at the next 4 years, I don't see chaos, getting much better. I don't see peace, because these people burning the cities, they don't care about Trump. They don't care about Biden. They don't care about the mayors. They don't care about...
They absolutely care about Biden. They absolutely care about Biden because Biden is reflecting what they're doing. Biden is their chance, and Kamala Harris is their chance in order to instill...
have a voice.
Right. So none of the rioters, protesters might be different, but the rioters absolutely want Biden to win. I'm sorry. It's going to be very difficult to convince me otherwise, because even tonight, Biden didn't say anything to refute those people. Yeah. The only thing he said about that was Antifa is not an organization. And it's
an idea.
That has been paying attention to the news knows that that's bullshit.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they might not have a head office or anything like that. There's clearly communication. There's clearly different ways through social media that these people conduct, that they contact each other and everything else. This isn't just some random group of strangers. There's clearly some kind of chain of command wherever it comes from, most notably through social media. And to sit there and deny that that even exists is very ignorant on the part of Biden.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the one thing that really kind of irked me a little bit is when Chris Wallace asked Trump, will you pretty much disavow white supremacists? I think a simple yes would have been it. And basically,
well, he started talking about the Proud Boys and shit. So Trump was an idiot.
Yeah, that's
That's the other thing too, is a lot of people think that Trump is racist, and I disagree with that. And I mean, there's a lot of points that I know that people are going to make about it, and I don't think that Trump in himself is a racist in any way. I think that
he's just not racially sensitive. That doesn't make somebody racist. He's just not racially sensitive.
But it fits the narrative of the left in order to paint him that way.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that that's more idiocracy coming from the left.
You see, what started happening for a while now is you had black violence on white. And you would have... not a lot of people, but you'd have enough voices say, how can a black person be racist when they have been profiled their entire life? And, the thing is you're teaching people, especially in campuses, that our country at its core is racist and it's hateful and it doesn't treat everybody the same. Having more people hate the country doesn't make it better. And then when you have some politicians teasing reparations over certain people's heads that they think that they're going to get something because of the way their ancestors were treated, you still keep that notion in somebody's head that white person pay for black abuse from yesteryear. And the problem is love overcomes evil. I know that's a corny phrase to say, but it is a fact. And we need to, nobody should pay for the sins of yesteryear. People should learn from it. I have changed my view on statues. I think statues and some people should be removed. But I have said this many times before. The idea of not teaching history, not teaching how bad things were back in the day, if you erase all of the evil, then nobody is a hero. If you do not teach what people were, how they were treated back in the day, you never could look back and say, man, I will never repeat that. I will never do what those people did in the 1700s, the 1800s, the 1950s. But when you try to just sweep that under the rug and try to act like, then why is Harriet Tubman, what's so spectacular about her? What is so spectacular about Jackie Robinson other than he was a great baseball player? You need to know, you need to learn the hatred that happened from yesteryear to understand why, Rosa Parks is as icon and important as they are. So to erase history, I think, is ridiculous, and you got to learn by it. And I don't know, man. There's so much division in this country. I don't care who gets elected president. This ain't changing anytime soon. And don't give me that The Rock 4 years from now or Oprah or someone else. It's not going to change. This is going to be probably a generation, where, let me say it like this, and I'll give you the floor. All right. I, growing up, loved disco music, loved house music. Went to the Paradise Garage at 16 years old. It's mostly a gay club. Walked in there, didn't have anybody gay approaching me, but I didn't feel uncomfortable being around blacks, gays. It didn't matter. Everybody was just having a good time. My point is this. At that time, you couldn't come out of the closet. It was very, very difficult to come out of the closet. And at that time, gays were looked as second-class citizens. So over the last 30 years, obviously, we've embraced gay, lesbian, LGBTQ. We've embraced all different walks of life, and things have gotten tremendously better from the 70s. But it's taking a generation to get to that point. What's going on now, the kids that are too young to understand this, those are the ones that are going to grow up with all of this chaos. And they're going to be the ones to change this, because they're going to look at it and say, I don't want this. We got to change this. People that are older, people that are Trump supporters are never going to feel comfortable that they could publicly support Trump. They'll never be able to do it. People who are anti-Trump will never get over the fact, not everybody, but they'll never get over the fact that some people support the president simply because they just want a better economy and a better life for themselves, for their families, to pay off their bills and feed their families. He's got a better plan. The gas prices now are still under $3 a gallon. That to me, that's a tax cut. Having gas dirt cheap is a big deal. So a lot of people are just more concerned about feeding my family, paying my bills, not having bad crime in my neighborhood. And just because you might feel Trump would do a better job at that, then you're a racist. And people are being trained to also believe that everybody who supports Trump is a racist. This is not going to go away for a very, very long time. I think what's going to happen is we're going to have to probably look for different areas to move to, and start getting in areas where you're just in the mountains or just once my parents are no longer here, which I hope is a very long time from now, I'm out of New York.
Okay, to refute a couple of your points there, which
Yeah.
I vehemently disagree with. I don't think it's a generational thing. Comparing gays to black people is
No, I never said black.
Apple
I said
747.
hatred. I never said black.
Okay.
I'm talking hatred.
Racial hatred versus hatred of gay people, bigotry is still apples to 747s. It just doesn't
Right.
compare. The reason is because the racial hatred that you're referencing, starting back from slavery, starting back from before the Civil War, has been through generations. There have been champions of justice, from Martin Luther King to Farrakhan to many other intelligent people that have spoken on behalf of black rights. It still hasn't changed a lot of the way that people react. And you can't sit there and say that this is a problem for the minorities to deal with, that the minorities need to generate
I agree.
this out.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you said, though.
No. What
And
I'm saying
telling
is
you
that
it's not their problem.
no. What I'm
It should be
saying
the
is that
problem of everybody involved. Hold on,
everybody.
give me my 2 minutes. Give me my 2 minutes,
Yeah.
sir. Mr. Trump, hold the fucking phone, all right? So it's not just the problem of the minorities at that point. It's the problem of everybody has to generation this out. Everybody has to generation this out.
Yeah.
The minorities and the Caucasians and everybody in between, they all need to generation this out. It's not one side or the other. That's the problem that I feel that we're facing here. So when you hear about the Black Lives Matter versus the All Lives Matter movement, the problem is they're both right and they're both wrong.
Right.
The Black Lives Matter movement focuses on black lives because they're going through the turmoil right now. And they've been going through the turmoil for generations. But the people in the All Lives Matter, which they've compared, they're like, well, your house isn't on fire now. Like, I've heard that analogy. But they feel as if they're going through something as well. And the problem is we need to make it to the point where we can fix black communities, we can fix these minority teachings, at the same time re-educate the Caucasian majority in order to be more accepting and remove all biases that they've currently had. But that's the problem. Even with this vote, even with Biden and Trump,
It's not going to fix anything.
well, Biden is clearly pro-Antifa BLM, and Trump is clearly Proud Boys and white nationalists. And it's disgusting because it shouldn't be that way on either side. On either side, it shouldn't be that way. The one thing that I really did disagree with when it came to Trump, because I was pro-Trump for the idea that Biden does stand for a lot of radical movement that has been going on, and obviously they're the people that are going to vote him into office. It's a fact. But on the other side of things, when Biden went after Trump about his mishandling of the COVID scenario, 1,010% agree. I think Trump has been atrocious during this entire COVID epidemic. And I know people will sit there and say, well, he did a great job and he did this and that. He didn't do enough. And he failed with the cutting jobs with the CDC and stuff like that. Trump has done an absolutely horrid job that I think that any other president would have had a better handle on.
Can I ask you a question?
Can
I ask you a question?
But yeah, go ahead.
Tell me a couple of things you think he could have done better.
Kept businesses open, however, supplied everybody with all of the fucking sanitizers, the masks, the suits.
Okay. All right.
I mean, the first, what was it, 4 to 6 months there? Hospitals didn't even have masks. They were reusing reused masks. They were reusing disposable masks in order to not get infected. There should have been an immediate push federally to keep sanitation, to keep cleanliness. And I know you were questioning that earlier. You're like, sanitation. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That's one of the biggest things that we should have run into it. In January, we should have had everything start to get sanitized. I think masks should have been immediately enforced. And I think that we shouldn't have had homemade masks like we're all wearing now. We should have had N95 masks on every person at every job. I think they should have implemented that off the get-go. And I understand the vaccine. People want to blame him for the vaccine. He's not a fucking scientist.
It's not his
And
fault
people
because
understand
FDA
that
takes
time.
years. FDA
Right,
takes
it
years.
goes through trials, it goes through clinical trials, and then you have first wave, second wave, third wave. We don't even know that when the first vaccines come out, if they're going to be as effective as they will in a couple of years when it's had time to be perfected. So I don't blame Trump for the vaccine. It's a horrible thing that we have to wait for, but that relies on scientific funding and scientific experimentation.
Yeah.
But as far as preventative measures, I think Trump has failed this fucking country.
Yeah.
Totally fucking failed at preventative.
Don't go anywhere. I want to get something really quick because I think this you'll appreciate this for real. It's gonna take me 10 seconds.
He's gonna put his dick on camera, folks. No dick.
You see this?
Yeah.
See this big shopping bag?
No, what is it?
This is where I agree with you tremendously. Let me tell you what this bag is. Okay? Loads of these.
Yep.
Seventh generation came out with their own disinfectant spray. Got this.
Okay.
Here's another scent. Okay? I have in here 10 of these and 8 of those sprays. You know why I have that?
For your job.
No.
Why?
My father's grocery store,
Oh.
they can't get Lysol. They can't get wipes. You go on Amazon right fucking now. Right now. Go on Amazon, everybody, and look up this. You will find people selling this still for $22 a jar. Amazon never stopped the price gouging. It is still going on today. You cannot buy this. And how I have this? Every day, I swear on my mother, every day, whenever I'm online, I send an email, I check the shows, the feedback, do work, pleasure. I always stop by Amazon Fresh and I look up Lysol, Clorox, disinfectant spray. And once in a blue moon, what?
Any competent president would have had that for your dad's job, for your job, for every business in this country. This was a federal failure. This
Yeah.
was a failure on the
I absolutely agree with you.
Lysol, you know what? You remember back in the 80s when we had the nameless brand shit, the military boxes of
Yes.
cereal and the Kleenex, and all it was a box with black army letters on it. That's what we should have all been getting.
Yeah.
Big boxes of Lysol and wet naps with just black letters on it from the military at every business, every store, at every place where people conduct business.
You go on Amazon Fresh. It took me almost 3 weeks to get all that. And now once a month, I go to my father's store and I go to my brother and say, look, I feel like a drug, I swear to God, I feel like a drug dealer. I say to him, look, I got 35 jars of Lysol. I got 20 jars of this. Give me $100 for it. And then what he does is he calls the customers who spend the most money in his store that are keeping the store alive. And he says to them, I got some Lysol. You want a can? I got some wipes. You want a can? And just to prove it to you, because I don't think his phone number would pop up, I got my cell phone in front of me because I was playing along with the phone before. I'm going to bring up my brother's text message conversation. Yeah, look at this. You don't see his number. Look at the middle of, and you know I can't manipulate this. Look at the middle of that conversation. It's dated Friday, August 21st. I'm coming now with 15 of the wipes and 13 cans of Lysol. The total amount comes to $138. I've been doing this since March. I could scroll down. I could scroll down further and show you.
You should
look,
have to.
look.
You're missing the point.
Look
of
at this.
man. You
This is
shouldn't
from
have-
July 8th. Nick, I left 20 of the Lysol wipes inside the first gate right to the garbage bin. I feel like a drug dealer. I've been doing that since March.
And I understand that this boils down to city and state and everything else like that as far as the distribution and everything goes. I still think it's a federal issue. I think that since this is a national issue, this is a national pandemic, this is a global pandemic, this should have been handled by the president. This is not something that you rely on your local fucking alderman to do. It could be distributed by your local alderman, but it should have been a mandate. It should have been a national mandate to do this. Then you wouldn't have to sit there and scrounge and deal with Amazon in order to try and get like 2 or 3 Lysol wipes to give out to people that fucking need it. This should have been something that was handled by the government, the full government, and it should have been distributed in January. This should have all taken. That's the other thing too. Look, I don't know everything as to the reasons why Trump didn't escalate everything in the beginning. I remember his interviews with it. I remember his nonchalance and how he really didn't care about COVID in the beginning, and he thought it was kind of a gag until it became truly an epidemic in this country, and I don't forget that. And maybe I'm a little more biased because I've lost someone close to me because of COVID, but I think ultimately that's his biggest failure, and that's going to be the legacy that he leaves behind more than anything else. So it's very difficult when those two, when you have on one side rioters supporting, hate organizations to a point, supporting Biden, and on the other side you have a president like Trump who doesn't really care about the welfare of Americans. I really don't think he does. And that's just my belief. So I don't know where I stand with this.
Yeah.
I think both sides, with those two topics in mind, both sides disgust me.
Yeah. I want to show you.